how's morphology connected to orthography and how people write things? And I was like, oh, write this way, but then again, we usually forget what things mean, like awful. And after the question, can you give some cool morphological patterns that you notice in other languages of the world?
Sure. So how is it connected to orthography or spelling?
Yes.
It kind of differs depending on the language. Some languages have a little more transparent orthography and some have less transparent orthography. English, we've had a variety of historical things that have affected it, including a lot of borrowings in French. So then we codified the spelling system when these borrowings hadn't quite worked their way into the system completely. Oftentimes, though, the way we speak changes faster than the way we spell. So spellings often reflect historical things. So, for example, you have words that are spelled with KN at the beginning, like night or knife. Those used to be a different sound in English. So night as in the knight in shining armor and night as in it's nighttime, let's go to bed, used to be said differently. But even though the sounds changed and they became the same, the spelling didn't. So that's why we have some differences in spelling that don't actually map to how we say things. And some things actually, so that's kind of the relationship between spelling and orthography. Sometimes spelling tells you something about the history of the word. Sometimes occasionally it does affect how we think about the morphology of the word. I'm not sure if I can think of a good example here, but sometimes people will look at the spelling of a word and therefore assume it means something even though that's not necessarily true. Or misparse, or we call them folk etymology sometimes, where you think something means something, but it doesn't actually. Historically, it doesn't mean that. So there's some fun ones. Oh, here's an example where spelling kind of plays a fun role. The word mouse.
Mouse.
Yeah, we've played with this one before in class. I know you both probably remember this, but the plural is mice. Or it could be mouses. And most people are pretty confident that it's mice, especially when we're talking about rodents. But as soon as we talk about devices with a computer, people are less certain. Do we like mouses or mice here?
Right.
Interesting.
Any preferences?
I think mouses.
Mouses, computer
sound
mouses. Yeah. And then if people still like mice, I like to tell them that it stands for manually operated user selection equipment. So it's an acronym. And then see if they still like mice better, because then it messes up the acronym. But mouses doesn't. And then I see if that changes their mind, and then I tell them again after that it actually doesn't mean that. Somebody just made that up based on the spelling, that it actually is called a mouse because it looks like the rodent, like the little thing with the tail, and then see if that changes their opinion again, right? So the spelling, we could spell that other ways, but because it's spelled that way, we can make up that acronym, and that might affect how we perceive, like, oh, well, maybe the plural should stay mouses, not be mice, even though that's how we use it when it's actually talking about the rodent.
It reminds me of the example you gave in class about the singular of lice.
Yeah.
Louse.
Yep, it's louse, but not everybody knows that, and sometimes people come up with interesting things. There's a Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader clip where they have to write down the singular of lice, and the fifth graders all put lie. As in you just take off the S, right? Because you just add an S when you make a plural, but it's not really that.
In a question is, if the plural of and how come dice? How come there's dice? How come the singular is not douse?
Yep. In analogy to or lice, louse, it should be, right?
Yeah. How come it's not?
Yeah. Because it's not really related. Well, you asked about how processing things affects things. So here's a good example. We can use mice again. If you want to say something is infested with mice, but put mice or mouse before it, do you like mouse infested or mice infested? That house has a ton of rodents in it. It is mouse infested, mice infested. Which one do you like?
Mice infested.
Mice infested.
At least for me.
So you get people liking both of those to similar degrees, okay? But now let's go one step up in how big the rodent is. So now we have a rat. That house is
rat infested.
Rat infested.
Yeah.
And nobody likes rats infested.
Why?
Okay, so the fact that we have an ending that tells us it's plural, rats, prevents it from going in a compound, but if it's a stem change like mouse to mice, it's more likely to be acceptable in a compound. Okay, because the typical explanation given for this is that we do compounding when we combine it with other roots first, and then we make them plural. So mouse and mice are both stored separately, whereas rat and rats are not. Rat is stored and rats is processed. And that works with actually a lot of words. You don't say a trees plantation, you say a tree plantation, even though there's obviously lots of trees. And you don't say a neighbor's hood, even though you have to have lots of neighbors for it to be a hood, right? So we do our plurals after, unless it's an irregular one. Then sometimes we do it before.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But the question is, how does it happen in the brain where you're like, okay, that's wrong. This doesn't sound right. Even if you've never heard of it, you're like, this doesn't sound right. What happens in the brain when that happens?
What happens in your brain?
Yeah.
When it sounds wrong?
Like when it sounds wrong, how can we tell linguistically? You say, this is wrong. And you ask, how do you know? It's like, I don't know. It just sounds wrong.
Yeah, so the way we know it's wrong is we ask speakers and they tell us it's wrong. That's the key thing, is the speakers are the ones who give us who are the arbitrators of what's right and wrong. In that case, it's some kind of clash between what we're doing. Even though, notice, if we say rats infested, you know what it means. You just know that's not how we do it.
Right.
So.
In